There is a silent frequency running beneath the noise of modern civilization, a low hum that goes undetected by the vast majority of the population. It is not a sound, but a feeling, a distinct, vibrating pressure located somewhere behind the eyes and deep within the frontal cortex. For the average individual, life is a sequence of external stimuli, followed by immediate, programmed responses. They are the happy tourists of reality, drifting through the architecture of society without ever questioning the blueprints. But for a specific subset of the human species, those burdened with the heavy, uneven distribution of high intelligence, that hum is deafening. It is the sound of the machine working. It is the inescapable awareness of the strings, the gears, and the artificiality of the construct we call the social order. We have been conditioned to view high intelligence as the ultimate gift, a genetic lottery win that guarantees success, status, and fulfillment. We are told that to be smart is to be capable, and to be capable is to be happy. This is the first and perhaps the most devastating lie of the meritocratic myth. The truth, stripped of its academic glamour and corporate marketing, is far colder and much more biological. High intelligence is not a gift. It is a sensory disorder. It is a burden of resolution. To understand the curse, we must first strip away the vanity of the ego and look at the brain as a biological processor. The primary function of the human brain is not to discover truth, it is to ensure survival. It is an organ designed to filter out information, to ignore the infinite variables of the environment, so that the organism can focus on eating, mating, and sleeping. The brain is an entropy reduction machine. It craves simplicity. It craves pattern. For the average mind, this filtering process is robust. It successfully blocks out the complexities of geopolitical maneuvering, the subtle manipulations of advertising, the micro-expressions of deceit in a partner's face, and the existential horror of a finite universe. But the high-intelligence brain fails at this filtration. It is a receiver with the gain turned up too high. It absorbs everything. It processes the anomalies that others ignore. It sees the pattern in the chaos, and more importantly, it sees the inevitable conclusion of the pattern long before it manifests in reality. This is the burden of the modern Cassandra, to predict the crash, the breakup, the betrayal, or the collapse, and to be powerless to stop it, because the surrounding herd is grazing peacefully, incapable of seeing the wolf until its teeth are already in their throats. This cognitive disparity creates a profound and distinct form of loneliness that has no parallel in the human experience. It is not the loneliness of isolation, but the loneliness of the crowded room. It is the realization that while you speak the same language as those around you, you are communicating on a frequency that they simply lack the hardware to receive. Psychometric studies suggest that a communication gap of 30 IQ points or more renders meaningful interaction nearly impossible. The nuance, the implication, and the abstract scaffolding of the conversation are lost, forcing the high-intelligence individual to constantly throttle their cognitive output, to simplify, to mask, and to perform a pantomime of normalcy. This constant act of self-regulation is exhausting. It is a form of psychological attrition that slowly grinds down the spirit, leading to the phenomenon we observe as the burnout of the gifted child. We see these children early on, bright-eyed and curious, praised for their precociousness. But as they age, the system does not expand to meet them, it contracts to crush them. We must look critically at the architecture of our educational and professional systems to understand why this suppression occurs. The modern education system was not designed to foster brilliance. It was designed to
manufacture conformity. Its roots lie in the Prussian model of the 18th century, a system engineered to produce obedient soldiers and competent bureaucrats, not thinkers. The structure of the classroom, with its rows of desks, its bells signaling transitions, and its emphasis on rote memorization and standardized testing, is a mirror image of the factory floor. It is a system of processing human capital. For the high-intelligent individual, this environment is a prison. Their minds do not move in linear, standardized progressions. They leap, they diverge, they synthesize disparate connections that the curriculum cannot account for. When a student points out a flaw in the teacher's logic or questions the validity of the structure itself, they are not rewarded for their insight. They are penalized for their disruption. They are taught very early that intelligence is only valuable when it serves the status quo. If it questions the status quo, it is a pathology. This creates the mid-wit trap, a sociological mechanism that governs the hierarchy of modern institutions. Society is managed not by the geniuses nor by the incompetent, but by the mid-level functional intelligences, those smart enough to run the machine but not smart enough to question why the machine exists. The corporate ladder, the bureaucratic administration, and the political apparatus are designed to filter out the outliers. The true genius is often erratic, difficult to manage, prone to deep depressions, and resistant to arbitrary authority. These traits are inefficiencies in a system that prizes predictability above all else. Therefore, the highly intelligent are often relegated to the margins. They become the consultants, the freelancers, the hermits, or, in the most tragic cases, the broken souls medicating their awareness with substance abuse, desperate to turn down the volume of their own minds. There is a dark psychology to this systemic control. It relies on the weaponization of social cohesion. Humans are tribal animals. We are biologically wired to fear exclusion. The high IQ individual perceives the absurdity of the tribal rituals, the corporate retreat, the partisan political rally, the mindless consumption of trends, but they are forced to participate or face ostracization. This creates a state of permanent cognitive dissonance. They are actors on a stage, reciting lines they know are false, performing emotions they do not feel, simply to maintain the illusion of belonging. This performance requires a massive expenditure of metabolic and psychic energy. It creates a hollow self, a persona constructed entirely for the comfort of others. Over time, the mask begins to eat the face. The individual loses touch with their own authentic drive, having sacrificed it on the altar of social acceptability. Furthermore, we must address the link between high intelligence and mental instability, not as a cliché, but as a neurological consequence of system architecture. The high IQ brain is characterized by hyperconnectivity. It has more white matter tracks, allowing for faster processing and richer associations. But this same hyperconnectivity leads to hyperexcitability. The same mechanism that allows a person to compose a symphony or solve a complex equation also causes them to ruminate obsessively on negative outcomes. This is the overexcitability hypothesis. The intelligent mind simulates futures constantly. It runs scenarios. In a stable, dangerous environment, like the prehistoric savanna, this anxiety was an evolutionary advantage. It kept you alive. In the safe, sterile, yet psychologically complex environment of the 21st century, this mechanism turns inward. It becomes a feedback loop of neuroticism. The intelligent mind dissects its own flaws, analyzes its own misery, and deconstructs the pointlessness of its own existence with ruthless efficiency. Depressive realism is the hypothesis that depressed individuals actually have a more accurate
the perception of reality than healthy ones. The optimism bias that protects the average mind from despair is absent in the high-functioning intellect. They see the world as it is, entropic, unfair, and indifferent. This leads us to the concept of the panopticon of the self. The high-intelligence individual is constantly observing themselves, observing the world. They possess a metacognitive layer that never sleeps. They analyze their own interactions while they are happening, critiquing their performance, predicting the other person's reaction, and adjusting in real time. This level of self-surveillance is paralyzing. It kills spontaneity. It makes true intimacy difficult because the mind never fully surrenders to the moment. It is always analyzing the moment. This is the curse of the observer. You are never fully inside the experience. You are always standing slightly apart, watching it happen, taking notes. This detachment is often mistaken for arrogance or coldness, but it is actually a defense mechanism. It is a way of managing the overwhelming influx of data. Society, in its current iteration, is becoming increasingly hostile to deep cognition. We have entered the age of the attention economy, a system designed to fragment focus and induce a state of constant low-level dopamine dependency. The algorithms that govern our digital lives are engineered to exploit the primitive parts of the brain: outrage, fear, lust, and tribal validation. For the deep thinker, the internet was initially a promise of infinite knowledge, a library of Alexandria without walls, but it has mutated into a Skinner box of distraction. The high-intelligence individual is not immune to this. In fact, their need for information makes them uniquely vulnerable to the doom-scrolling phenomenon. They seek patterns in the noise, but the noise is now infinite. The result is information paralysis. The mind consumes so much data about the state of the world, climate collapse, economic instability, political polarization, that it enters a state of learned helplessness. They know everything, yet feel they can do nothing. This is the paralysis of the analyst. Let us dig deeper into the professional landscape. The modern workplace is an exercise in performative mediocrity. The rise of the open plan office, the endless meetings that could have been emails, the enforced team-building exercises, these are not neutral design choices. They are mechanisms of leveling. They destroy the solitude required for deep work. They prioritize collaboration, which is often a euphemism for the diffusion of responsibility. In this environment, the high performer is often punished with more work. If you are competent, you are given the slack of the incompetent. The intelligent worker quickly realizes that the reward for efficiency is exploitation.
They learn to act their wage. They learn to slow down, to hide their capacity, to blend in with the slower pace of the herd. This is the attrition of potential. How many breakthroughs, how many works of art, how many solutions to global problems have been lost simply because the minds capable of generating them were crushed under the weight of bureaucratic inertia? The systems of control are not merely external, they are internalized. We must speak of the imposter syndrome, not as a personal failing, but as a rational response to a world that does not value your specific currency. When you look around and see that the metrics of success are awarded to those who shout the loudest, not those who think the deepest, you begin to doubt the value of your own mind. You begin to wonder if your inability to tolerate the mundane is a defect. The high IQ individual often feels like a distinct species, stranded on a planet that operates on a logic they find alien. This alienation is compounded by the cultural anti-intellectualism that pervades modern discourse. Expertise is viewed with suspicion. Nuance is dismissed as weakness. The complex
Answer is rejected in favor of the simple, wrong slogan. To hold a nuanced view in a polarized world is to be an enemy to both sides. The intelligent observer sees the validity in opposing viewpoints, the shades of gray, the historical context. But the system demands binary allegiance. You are either with us or against us. For the mind that sees the whole, this binary choice is an intellectual violence. We must also consider the role of the pharmaceutical industry in this equation. We are currently witnessing the mass medication of divergence. Children who cannot sit still in factory model classrooms are diagnosed with attentional disorders. Adults who cannot find fulfillment in soul-crushing data entry jobs are treated for depression. While these conditions are real and suffering is valid, we must ask, are we treating the illness or are we treating the symptom of an incompatible environment? Is the high-energy, divergent thinker disordered, or is the cage simply too small? By chemically suppressing the peaks and valleys of the intense mind, we are creating a flattened, manageable population. We are optimizing for stability at the cost of vitality. We are trading the dangerous genius for the safe citizen. The tragedy of the intelligence curse is that it is often invisible to those who do not possess it. To the outside world, the high IQ individual appears lucky. They grasp concepts quickly. They pass exams with little effort. They are often articulate and funny. But the observer cannot see the mental cost of that performance. They cannot see the nights spent staring at the ceiling, the brain refusing to shut down, looping through the mistakes of 1999, the possibilities of 2030, and the structure of a sentence spoken 3 hours ago. They cannot feel the physical weight of empathy, the visceral pain of seeing potential wasted, the agonizing slowness of a world that moves at half speed. There is a distinct cynicism that develops over time. It is the cynicism of the pattern recognizer who has seen the cycle repeat too many times. They see the revolutionary politician become the tyrant. They see the disruptive startup become the monopoly. They see the romantic passion devolve into domestic resentment. Because they can predict the decay, they often pre-grieve the loss before it happens. They sabotage relationships to avoid the inevitable end. They refuse to start projects because they can already see the failure points. This is the paralysis of prescience. It is the inability to suspend disbelief long enough to participate in the illusions that make life bearable for everyone else. Yet the system relies on these minds. This is the paradox. Civilization needs the engineers, the surgeons, the architects, and the strategists to keep the lights on and the bridges standing. So society strikes a devil's bargain. It extracts the cognitive labor of the intelligent while denying them the environment they need to thrive. It places them in golden handcuffs. It gives them status and money, but denies them autonomy and meaning. It keeps them busy with complexity so they do not have time to question the fundamental direction of the ship. The rat race is designed to be just engaging enough to occupy the mind, but just exhausting enough to prevent rebellion. Consider the concept of administrative evil. This occurs when ordinary people, simply doing their jobs within a bureaucracy, contribute to horrific outcomes because the system fragments responsibility. The intelligent individual within such a system is the only one capable of seeing the whole picture, of connecting the dots between the spreadsheet in front of them and the devastation it causes halfway across the world. This knowledge is a moral asset. It eats away at the conscience. The choice becomes speak up and be destroyed, or stay silent and be complicit. Most choose silence, and that silence becomes a cancer of the soul. The curse is also biological in its loneliness. becomes a statistical nightmare. If you are in the top 1% of intelligence, you are statistically eliminating 99% of the population as potential peers. The search for a partner who can match your processing speed, your vocabulary, and your abstract reasoning is a search for a needle in a haystack. And when you find them, two high-variance minds colliding can be volatile. The result is often a retreat into solitude, where the mind is its own best companion and its own worst torturer. Ultimately, the intelligence curse is a curse of scale. It is the problem of trying to run high-voltage software on hardware designed for the Stone Age. We are primates with nuclear weapons. We are cavemen with supercomputers. The high-intelligence individual is the one who feels this discrepancy most acutely. They are the canary in the coal mine, gasping for air while the miners keep digging, oblivious to the toxicity of the atmosphere. They are the glitch in the matrix, the anomaly that the system tries to correct but cannot fully delete. As we move deeper into this analysis, we will dissect the specific mechanisms of this control. We will look at the linguistic traps, the economic shackles, and the pharmaceutical blunt instruments used to sand down the edges of the sharpest minds. We will explore why the mad genius is a trope, and why the line between epiphany and insanity is so terrifyingly thin. We will ask the uncomfortable question: in a world built for the average, is sanity simply a statistical aggregate? And if you see what others cannot, are you crazy? Or are you the only one who is awake? The silence you hear now is not empty. It is pregnant with the realization that you have felt this hum your entire life. You have felt the friction of the world against your mind. You have wondered why everything feels so slow, so repetitive, so obvious. You are not broken. You are simply running at a different clock speed. But be warned, understanding the machinery does not allow you to escape it. In fact, understanding it only makes the bars of the cage more visible. The investigation begins now, into the dark psychology of the system that was built to contain you. We will tear apart the comforting lies of success and happiness and look at the raw data of the human condition. It will not be comforting, but for a mind like yours, comfort was never the goal. Truth was, and the truth is a heavy thing to carry. We must pivot to the developmental years, the crucible where the curse is first forged. The gifted label is often the first shackle. When a child is identified as high potential, they are immediately objectified. They cease to be a child and become a project, an investment, a vessel for the unfulfilled ambitions of parents and the statistical quotas of schools. They are praised for what they do, not who they are. "You're so smart" becomes the defining metric of their worth. This creates a brittle ego. If your value is tied to being the smartest person in the room, then every mistake is a crisis of identity. Every failure is a death. This induces a risk aversion that cripples them later in life. They stop taking chances. They stick to what they can master quickly. They avoid the domains where they might be merely average, because being average feels like being worthless. This is the fixed mindset trap, and it is devastating. The intelligent child learns to perform intelligence rather than engage in learning. They learn to game the test. They learn to please the authority figure. They become excellent sheep. Contrast this with the late bloomer or the ignored child who develops in the shadows, free from the crushing weight of expectation. They are allowed to fail. They are allowed to explore. But the identified genius is placed on a conveyor belt. Advanced placement, honors classes, extracurriculars designed for resume padding. Their childhood is strip-mined for credentials. By the time they reach university,
They are exhausted. They have been running a race they didn't sign up for, chasing a carrot they don't even want. And when they finally stop to ask, "Is this it?" the existential dread sets in. This dread is fueled by the infinite capacity for comparison. The intelligent mind is acutely aware of the opportunity cost of every decision. If I choose career A, I kill the possibility of career B. If I live in this city, I cannot live in that one. The average mind makes a choice and rationalizes it as the best one. The intelligent mind makes a choice and mourns the infinite lives unlived. They are haunted by the ghosts of their own potential. This leads to decision paralysis. They stand at the crossroads for so long that the sun goes down. They over-optimize. They research every variable, read every review, simulate every outcome, and in the end, they often choose nothing. They stagnate. The perfect becomes the enemy of the good. We see this stagnation in the phenomenon of the underachieving genius. The janitor who solves theorems on the chalkboard, the bartender who quotes Kierkegaard. Society looks at them with pity, seeing wasted potential. But perhaps they are the ones who have opted out. Perhaps they have looked at the cost of success, the ulcers, the 60-hour weeks, the corporate politics, and decided the price is too high. They have chosen to protect their minds by keeping their labor simple. They reserve their cognitive energy for themselves, not for the shareholders. Is this failure, or is it the ultimate rebellion?
However, this rebellion comes with a cost: boredom. Boredom is physically painful for the high IQ brain. It is not just a lack of interest, it is a lack of dopamine. The understimulated brain begins to cannibalize itself. It creates drama where there is none. It creates anxiety. It seeks risk. This is why we see a high correlation between high intelligence and substance abuse. Drugs and alcohol offer a way to modulate the internal frequency, stimulants to match the speed of thought, or depressants to slow it down to a bearable pace. The substance becomes a tool for managing the hardware. Let us return to the social dynamics. The tall poppy syndrome is a universal cultural mechanism. Society seeks homeostasis. It wants a flat surface. The person who stands up, who stands out, who exceeds the norm, is a threat to the stability of the group. They make others feel inadequate. They disrupt the hierarchy. So the group instinctively moves to cut them down. This begins on the playground, where the nerd is bullied, not just for being weak, but for being different. It continues in the office, where the innovator is blocked by middle management. The message is clear: do not shine too bright. Dim your light so you do not blind the others. The high-intelligence individual learns to self-censor. They learn to laugh at jokes that aren't funny. They learn to nod along to opinions that are demonstrably false. They learn to hide their vocabulary. They become chameleons. But the chameleon eventually forgets its true color. The political implications of this are profound. A population that cannot think critically is easier to govern. It is easier to sell fear to people who cannot analyze risk. It is easier to sell tribalism to people who cannot understand nuance. Therefore, the systems of power have no incentive to cultivate mass intelligence. They have an incentive to cultivate mass competence. Just enough smarts to push the buttons, but not enough to read the code. This is why the humanities are dying. Philosophy, history, literature, these are the disciplines that teach us how to think, not what to think. They are being defunded and marginalized in favor of STEM fields that produce technicians. We are building a world of highly skilled tools, wielded by hands that are invisible. The intellectual dark web and similar movements are a symptom of this starvation. People are hungry for long-form, complex, dangerous
Conversations. They are tired of the soundbite. But even these spaces are quickly captured by audience capture and algorithmic incentives. The true thinker is often politically homeless. They see the flaws in the left and the flaws of the right. They see that both are merely different flavors of collectivism, different marketing packages for the same control structures. This political isolation is another layer of the curse. You have no team to root for. You watch the political theater with the detachment of an entomologist watching ants at war. It is fascinating, but it is not your war. Yet you are forced to live in the colony. We must also touch upon the gender dynamics of intelligence. The experience of the high IQ male and the high IQ female often diverge due to social conditioning. The intelligent male is often granted an eccentric genius pass. He is allowed to be socially awkward, disheveled, and arrogant. It is seen as part of the package. The intelligent female, however, faces a double bind. If she is assertive, she is bossy or shrill. If she displays her intelligence, she is intimidating. She is expected to be brilliant and nurturing, sharp and soft. This imposes an additional cognitive load, the management of the male ego. Many high IQ women learn to play dumb to survive socially and romantically, a performance that is deeply corrosive to the self. Let us examine the architecture of the modern city. It is a hostile environment for the sensitive mind. The constant noise pollution, the light pollution, the visual clutter of advertising, it is a sensory assault. The high IQ brain, with its reduced latent inhibition, cannot filter this out. It is constantly processing the sirens, the flashing lights, the fragments of conversation. This leads to chronic stress. The city is designed for commerce, not for contemplation. It is a machine for moving bodies and money. The need for silence, for nature, for the horizon, is biological, but it is a luxury good. We have monetized peace of mind. Only the wealthy can afford the silence required to think. In the realm of technology, we are witnessing the outsourcing of cognition. GPS has atrophied our spatial memory. Spell check has atrophied our spelling. Algorithmic recommendations have atrophied our taste. We are offloading our mental functions to the cloud. For the average person, this is convenience. For the intelligent person, it is a terrifying surrender of autonomy. We are merging with the machine, but we are not the masters of the machine. We are the data points. The smart home and the smart city are not designed to make us smarter. They are designed to make us more monitorable. The surveillance state is built on the pretext of safety and convenience,
but its function is control. The high IQ individual knows that data is power, and by giving up our data, we are giving up our power. The curse is also one of temporal perception. The intelligent mind perceives time differently. They are acutely aware of the finiteness of life. This creates a chronophobia, a fear of time passing. They feel the seconds ticking away. They calculate the percentage of their life already used. This drives the obsession with productivity, the inability to just be. Every moment of leisure feels like a theft from potential accomplishment. They cannot watch a sunset without calculating the rotation of the Earth or thinking about the spectral composition of the light. The direct experience of beauty is mediated by the analysis of beauty. So, where does this leave the cursed? Is there a way out? Or is the only path one of resignation? The ancient Stoics offered a solution, the acceptance of what cannot be changed. But the intelligent mind is wired to solve problems, not to accept them. Acceptance feels like defeat. The struggle is to find a way to use the processing power without being consumed by it, to find a flow state where the difficulty of the task matches the capacity of the mind.
This is why many high IQ individuals gravitate towards extreme sports, complex coding, or high-stakes trading. They need a problem hard enough to absorb all their bandwidth, leaving no RAM left for existential dread. But these are temporary fixes. The systemic issue remains. We are living in a society that is fundamentally anti-entropic, trying to impose order on a chaotic universe. And the high IQ mind is the instrument of that order, yet it is also the victim of it. The dark psychology of systemic control is not a conspiracy of a few evil men in a smoky room. It is an emergent property of the system itself. The system protects itself. It neutralizes threats. And the free-thinking, hyper-aware mind is the ultimate threat. It is the virus in the code. As we proceed, we will examine the historical precedents, the purge of the intellectuals in totalitarian regimes, the burning of the books, the exile of the poets. History shows us that when power consolidates, intelligence is the first target. But in a democracy, the target is not hit with a bullet, it is hit with a deluge of irrelevance. You are not silenced, you are drowned out. You are not banned, you are shadow banned. The mechanism is softer, but the result is the same, the neutralization of dissent. This documentary is a mirror. If you are still listening, if you are still engaged, it is because you recognize your own reflection in these words. You know the hum, you know the weight, you know the mask. We are about to strip the mask off. We are about to look at the gears of the trap. It will be a descent into the cold, hard logic of control. But remember, the only way out is through. You cannot unknow what you know. You cannot lower your IQ. You can only learn to navigate the labyrinth. And to navigate it, you must first see the walls. Let us begin with the biological hardware, the myelin sheaths, the prefrontal cortex, the metabolic cost of thought. The brain consumes 20% of the body's energy, despite being only 2% of its mass. For the high IQ individual, this consumption is even higher during complex tasks. Thinking is physical labor. It burns glucose. It generates waste products. The brain fog that follows a day of intense cognitive work is a physiological reality. You are an athlete of the mind, but you are rarely treated like one. You are expected to perform at peak capacity 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, in environments designed for cattle. This biological mismatch is the foundation of the fatigue that plagues the gifted. We will also look at the role of language. Language is a tool of compression. We take a complex, multidimensional thought and compress it into a linear string of sounds or symbols. The listener then has to decompress it. For the high IQ mind, the loss of data during this compression-decompression algorithm is frustrating. You have a symphony in your head, but you can only whistle a tune. You feel the inadequacy of words. You struggle to articulate the nuance because the vocabulary of the common tongue is too coarse. This leads to a reliance on jargon, on precise technical terms, which further alienates the listener. You are speaking high-fidelity audio to a mono speaker. The narrative of the tortured artist or the mad scientist is a cultural containment strategy. By framing intelligence as linked to madness, society invalidates the critique of the intelligent. He's brilliant, but he's crazy. This dismisses the substance of the argument by attacking the stability of the source. It is a sophisticated ad hominem. We must reject this framing. The distress of the intelligent is not a sign of madness. It is a sign of health in a sick world.
It is the immune system of the psyche reacting to a toxic environment. The upcoming 90 minutes will be an exercise in deconditioning. We will methodically dismantle the myths you have been fed about your own mind. We will expose the levers of control used by the education.
Now, corporate and political machines. We will look at the abyss, and we will try to find a way to stare into it without blinking. The hum is getting louder. The frequency is rising. Let the signal begin.